You are listening to Dear Texas Radio, a program of Dear Texas Read and sponsored by Texas Authors Incorporated. If you would like to ask today's guest author a question, please do so on Twitter using the hashtag Dear Texas Radio. However, not all questions will be answered during the show. Now sit back and enjoy listening to today's show and learn about a Texas author and their books.
And welcome to Dear Texas Radio. This is your host, B. Alan Bourgeois. And if you know me, I'm going to tell you to just sit back, relax, drop everything, just don't break it. We don't want you to do that. But we do want you to pick up a great book by a Texas author and let the worries of the day pass you by enjoying such a good book. And to help you with that today, we have with us Michael J. Hawron. Welcome, Michael.
Hi, Alan. Thanks for having me on your show.
It's a pleasure. You have 3 published books. You are working on at least 3 more from what it sounds like. So we have a lot to discuss. So let's start with the simplest thing, a little bit about you. You went to the MIT, but you took a break to travel the world. But it ended up being a very long break. Is that right?
Yes, actually, it was about a 25-year break. I ended up living in 30 different countries on 5 different continents. We'll call that continuing education.
I'm sure that it really must have been a lot of education with all those different countries and continents. And from that, you actually ended up creating a book called Entertaining Detours. Is that right?
Actually, that book came about as a result of an email and some serendipity.
Do explain.
Well, 30 years ago, I lived in a remote mountain valley on an isolated island in the South China Sea with my young family, and we loved it there. And recently, a few years ago, my oldest daughter, my oldest son, and I said, let's see if we can go back and visit the place and see what it's like. And so we looked at Google Maps, and there we tried to find the house, but we couldn't see it. The area was all overgrown with trees, which was different from before, and saw this icon, and I clicked on this icon, and it said Ark Eden, and Ark Eden led me to a website. It was this fantastic nonprofit organization that's into all kinds of environmental causes, and so I sent him an email saying, hi, I'm so-and-so, and 30 years ago I lived here in this 2-story green house. Do you know if it's still there? And I'd love to come see you someday. And I thought, they're not going to respond to me. I'm halfway around the world. They don't know me from Adam. Next day, I got this very warm and enthusiastic email from this woman, Jenny Quinton, who is the founder of Ark Eden. And she said, Mike, you must be that big family that lived here years ago. She goes, I'd love to have you come visit us. And so we started exchanging emails, and I told her what it was like raising my kids there when they were young. And she had young kids there as well. And she ended up living in the exact same house that I had lived in. So we were just exchanging emails and just having a good time, And I said, well, maybe we'll save some of these emails. Someday our grandkids will want to read these maybe. And she said, Mike, you need to write a book. You should write a book. And I said, oh, no, don't say that. And all my life when I was recounting stories to people, like the times I was attacked by a tribe of baboons or the time a Chinese army patrol came to my door asking for directions to the war games, all kinds of crazy stories. I'd tell people that, and they'd say, you should write a book. And that's kind of a nice sentiment, but it's like saying, well, you should run a marathon. It's easy for the other person to say it. But I never got around to writing the book until I met this woman, Jenny. And I said, well, I don't know, Jenny, how about I just write you a chapter? We'll do a little short story. You tell me if you like it. Send me your feedback. She said, okay, I'll do that. So I sent her one story, and she said, oh, I had interesting, input like that too. And then I sent her the next one, and before I know it, we were on a roll, and we started writing this book. And that was the working title, was You Should Write a Book, until I found out there was a merchant seaman that wrote a book by the same title. In fact, he wrote You Should Write a Book, volumes 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I eventually came on Entertaining Detours, and it has a double meaning. I entertained detours. In other words, I took the detours. And in recounting these stories, I wanted them to be entertaining for the reader. A lot of people might like to travel the world, but they just don't have the time, the patience to go through security, pack their bags. So you can read this book, and every chapter is a different story, different countries, different just unique stories that don't happen to the normal person. I had ball lightning, for example, go through my living room one day. Just kind of fun stuff like that.
It sounds like a lot of fun, a lot of interesting stories, definitely. So what got you started on this trip? I mean, here you get out of MIT, and you've got a great career ahead of you, so why did you detour?
Well, I think I can blame it on a woman. The woman that lived in the dorm next to me at MIT was going to Monash University in Australia, and I just decided, well, maybe I'd like to pop down there and visit her and say hi and surprise her. And, I got over to Australia. I actually never met her, but I met my first wife there, and one thing led to another. I raised a family there and ran a number of different businesses while I was there, and just became a world traveler. I just enjoyed it so much, and one opportunity after another presented itself to him, and the next thing I was in Hong Kong for 11 years, and so on. And eventually, I guess like all chickens, eventually come home to roost. Eventually, I came back to the States, but I was 25 years from the time I left the States until I stepped foot back in America again, and that was a big transition to come back, I tell you.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, just being gone in that time period, a lot has changed, but also experiencing all those different cultures, some slightly behind us, some even ahead of us. So, I mean, there's a lot of change there. Is that how Just Good, Clean Fun, your secondary book came about, was from more of those stories, or is that something else?
Good, Clean Fun came about, again, unplanned. It was a chance meeting. I was actually at my mother's funeral at the visitation, and this man came in the room, and none of my sisters or my brother claimed him, so he must have been somebody who knew me. And I was looking at him. I said, I don't recognize him. And finally, he smiled, and I remembered who he was. He was my childhood friend who I had not seen in 45 years. And we stepped outside. We started sharing stories, just humorous stories, and we just had a great time connecting and remembering these things crystal clear that we hadn't thought about in 45 years. And when he got all done laughing, he just kind of wound down and said, Mike, that was all just good, clean fun. And when he said that, the hairs on my arm stood up. I said, Mark, you have just given me the title for my next book. And I said, what if we had a story, childhood friends got recruited by the CIA into different branches of secret programs and didn't know that each other were there, and they didn't meet again until 45 years later. And that's basically how that story came about.
Interesting. And chance encounters lead to so many things. In both of your books, have you found that to happen in other ways too?
Yes, it's happened. The book, The Little Town with the Big Heart, how that book came about was when I landed in New Boston, Texas, which is about as small as you can get after living in Tokyo and Hong Kong and London and Brazil, Mexico City, Los Angeles. It was a big adjustment. And people who read my first book, Entertaining Detours, and learned about all these countries that they'd never been to, a lot of them never even going out of the county, they looked at me and said, look, how on earth did you travel the whole world and end up living in New Boston, Texas? And I said, well, that's a good question, and it's got a good story. And for some people who didn't have a lot of time to listen to me, I'd say, well, I just got lost and ran out of gas, and here I am. But for the people that did have time to listen, I told them. And in the telling of the tale, I realized it was helped me to describe how this town had opened its heart to me, and it led to me exploring the history and the people of the area. And through that, I met some very interesting people and learned some very fascinating things, actually even about the house that I'm living in now, which turns out to be about 125 years old, one of the first houses in our county, and it was linked to a lot of different historical events. And again, that was something I kind of stumbled upon, and I was glad to be able to share it with my readers.
We have a couple minutes session, and please let people know where they can find your books.
You can find my books on Amazon.com. They're available in paperback and also in Kindle version. And if you want to read more about me or my life or my books, you can look at my website, Entertaining Detours, or I have a Facebook page by the same name. And if you write to me, I'll be glad to respond to you right away. If you have any questions, ideas, I'd love to hear from you.
And, of course, your books are available at books.txauthors.com, too, correct?
Absolutely. That's the best place to get them.
Okay. As I said, we only have a couple minutes left. So, real quickly, do you have any words of advice for people who want to become a writer?
Yes, I do, Alan. In fact, that's a great question because early next year I'm going to be conducting a young writers workshop, and I'm thinking about those questions right now. I would say that to be a good writer, you should be a good reader. If you listen to the story of most great sports players today, they'll always tell you they had a childhood hero. It was Michael Jordan or Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, or Johnny Unitas, somebody in their field that they looked up to, and that's how they patterned themselves. And likewise, I think if people can read great writing, they can learn about composition, style, vocabulary, so many things that just don't come naturally unless you've had some background in reading. So I think as they develop as a good reader, it helps develop your creativity, and it also helps with your critical thinking skills, which I believe are two very important assets for a good writer.
So with that, who was your idol in writing?
I had a few. I was quite eclectic. I liked Tolstoy, big, long, thick books by him. Kurt Vonnegut was another hero of mine. He actually worked at the General Electric plant, which he talked about in his books, which was only about 5 miles away from where I lived. And when me and my buddies were in junior high and high school, he was like a rock star for us. So he had a combination of critical thinking and kind of a tongue-in-cheek humor, a bit of science and a bit of whimsy, and I really enjoyed that as well.
Okay. Well, we need to go ahead and step away and let our sponsors do their thing, but we'll be back in just a moment.
All righty.
Defiance Press and Publishing of Conroe, Texas, publishes high-quality, principled fiction and nonfiction, current events, and children's literature with a special emphasis on God, country, liberty, and conservatism to serve the diverse interests of our readers. Defiance Press is a fully independent book publishing company. We handle the details from manuscript to market. Contact us for more details at www.defiancepress.com or call 713-429-4366. Love to read? Love to meet authors in person? Then check out bookfestival.network to find a book festival in your region of Texas. We are adding book festival events throughout the year, so sign up to get notices and even a coupon towards purchase of a Texas author's book. Sign up at bookfestival.network. Hello, Texas authors. My name is Randy James, coming to you from my Carrollton recording studio, where I spend time writing and producing commercials for my radio endorsement clients, as well as my private freelance clients. I'd like the opportunity to help you sell more books with a commercial like this and get listeners of Dear Texas Radio excited about your title, all at a special introductory price, available to members of the Texas Association of Authors. Call or text 214-762-1942. That's 214-762-1942. Attention students in grades 6 through 12. Do you love to write? Texas Authors Institute of History is kicking off its first statewide short story contest for students. It's free to enter and a great way to begin your career in writing. Sign up at shortstory.texasauthors.institute for complete rules. Again, to enter, go to shortstory.texasauthors.institute. You can win cash prizes and an opportunity to be published.
Do you love to read great new ebooks? Visit EBG247.com. Be the first to discover the next bestseller. At EBG247, we have the web's largest selection of great new book reads, from that amazing new fiction or nonfiction to horror, romance, and fantasy. We even have today's best children's books. That's EBG247.com. New books arrive daily, and all ebooks start at just 99 cents. If you love to read, then you'll love EBG247.com. Low prices, large selection, and an easy-to-use website. It's all only at EBG247.com.
You are listening to Dear Texas Radio, a program of Dear Texas Read and sponsored by Texas Authors Incorporated. If you would like to ask today's guest author a question, please do so on Twitter using the hashtag Dear Texas Radio. However, not all questions will be answered during the show. Now sit back and enjoy listening to today's show and learn about a Texas author and their books.
And welcome back to Dear Texas. I am your host, B. Alan Bourgeois. We have with us today Michael J. Hawron, and we have been talking about his variety of books, a lot of comedy in them, as well as I'm sure some serious items, but it covers a lot of different aspects of the world through his entertaining Detours, then his second book, Just Good, Clean Fun. And we were just talking about a little town with a big heart. And Michael, you were talking about how the town just welcomed you, but that really is, there's more to the story than just that, correct?
That's correct, yes. When I came to New Boston, Texas, it wasn't really planned. We had known some missionaries in Mexico who were living in the general area, and we were in Dallas at the time. I was working for a publishing company. My contract had come to an end, and kind of a plea for help from them. They're saying, we're having a hard time. Do you think you could come visit us for a few weeks and, help us out? So we did. We spent some time there, got used to being in East Texas and Bowie County, and just loved the area. And we were looking for a place to settle down and raise our young children, and started to get to know some people in the area. And one day I saw an ad in the paper for this house and went by and looked at it and said, well, this is good enough. We'll try renting this house. And I went to the bank next day with my life savings, which I think was about $200 at the time. And I was telling the lady I was a retired missionary, and she said, oh, well, you need to meet Ron Rennert. He's a big missionary in the area here. And I said, and look, here he is. He's just coming in the door right now. Come on in here, Ron. And so Ron's this really fun, comical guy, and he says, well, where are you living? And I didn't know anything about the area, so I said, well, up here, there, they're not telling him this. He goes, his eyes got big, bug-eyed. He goes, that's my house. That's where I grew up. And he said, well, when did you move in? I said, I moved in on January 12th. He said, oh, my, that's my dad's birthday. That was his birthday. And so that's how he was the first person I met in New Boston. It turned out that his family had run a poultry farm in the area for decades and was very well respected in the area as being a very honorable family, good morals, and also just did a very good business. And meeting them led me to meet all kinds of other people. And as I started talking to these people, they had stories to tell that were just amazing. And I thought, now this is important. Young people need to realize that there's an oral history out there that they need to grasp before it's gone. These people that have lived 70, 80, 90 years, they have stories and insights that we will never be able to obtain on our own. And so I try to capture some of those in that book. And The Little Town with a Big Heart just kind of summed it up. And this year in March, the Chamber of Commerce in New Boston had their banquet, their annual banquet, and they asked if they could use my book cover, the title, the artwork, as their theme. And they were very proud that I made a tribute to New Boston like that. And so I'm talking to you from the Little Town with a Big Heart.
That's great. And you have actually, if I remember correctly, about 3 more books in the works?
That's correct. Just Good, Clean Fun was the first of the spy series, and it was sort of like a sampler. You get to meet some of the characters, and in the next book, which is going to be, the working title of it is More Spies and More Fun, we're going to develop the characters more. Mitch Hawkins, the main character, his sister is going to get involved in some of the plots and subterfuges, and so that will be a lot of fun. Also coming down the pipeline, it's pretty much finished, waiting on artwork for the cover, is the third in my True Tales trilogy. It's another collection of short stories. This one's called Awesome Footsteps, Missionaries' Memoirs, and it will be more like a devotional. Each chapter is a separate topic, and I'm talking about firsthand experiences that I encountered as a missionary in different countries, whether it was healing, a miraculous supply of needs, protection, some rather unique stories that would only happen in that kind of a setting, and I put them to a key scripture in each chapter sort of as a study guide for pastors, Sunday school teachers, or just anybody interested in having a better understanding of depths of spirituality and religious experiences. And so that one I'm very, very happy to make available. It should be out by Easter, and so that will complete the trilogy that I embarked on starting about 3 years ago. Also, I'm playing around with a different genre. I'm doing a short story. This one is it's a parody, a sci-fi parody. It's called The Device, and it's about a alien race or alien people called the Data Harvesters, or Daha for short, who come to Earth, and they are data mining the Earthlings back in the year 1999, and having seen the archives of human history, they saw 2001 Space Odyssey and that big black monolith in the beginning of the movie, and they said, aha, we're going to make a device shaped like that. And they invent the cell phone, and that's how they're going to data harvest the humans, and then until the hero comes along. And I won't tell you any more about that. Don't want to spoil the ending.
Now, that's a big change from your other style of writing. What made you get into sci-fi?
Well, actually, I don't know. One night I just was wakeful, and around 3 o'clock in the morning, it just came to me. And I guess a while ago, last year, I reread The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I really loved that book, the style of it, and I think that sort of inspired me to try something in that same genre. It's a little bit whimsical, a little bit scientific, and just a little bit of fun. So I think I'm trying to push myself into new areas to grow, do something different each time, and a lot of times I just go how the stream leads me. Maybe it's a suggestion from someone or just inspiration that comes at the spur of the moment, and just follow it and see what happens.
I was wondering if maybe by chance there was a commentary about the actual use of cell phones and how it is collecting data.
It is, very much so. It's all of my books. I try to not only entertain people, but I try to make them think. And so all of my characters reflect on things and events that they come across. And The Device is the same way. It is told as a science fiction, but it very much is a critique on modern society and how the cell phone has really changed people's lives, values, habits, and the advantages and also the dangers.
Okay. And just to go back, your book that was coming out in April, what was the title of that?
Awesome Footsteps.
Okay, and that's your third or part of the trilogy that you're writing of short story collections, correct?
Right, that's correct. Uh-huh.
Okay. And real quickly, go ahead and let people know where they can find out more about that particular book, but also then be able to purchase your other books.
Yes. You can check my website, entertainingdetours.com. You can look at my Facebook page, Entertaining Detours. My books are available on Amazon and Kindle format and in paperback format, and also at the Texas Authors bookstore. So there's many ways you get in touch with me. If you go to my website, it gives you contact information for my phone number, my email address, and I'm glad to hear from you. I'll write you back. In fact, today I just got a Christmas card from a 85-year-old priest who's has an honorary doctorate. He's from Sydney, Australia, and he performed the wedding ceremony for my first wife and I, and he happened to be mentioned in a couple of my books, and so I thought, well, I'd write him and see if he's still alive, and see if I could tell him that he's one of the characters in my book. He's plays prominently in the Just Good Clean Fun. So I contacted him, and he was just ecstatic to hear from me. Sent me one of the many books that he's written, and he just finished reading Good Clean Fun, and he said, what a world you've created. It's a secret world, and but it's very recognizable and very convincing. And so that was a real treat. I love how writing and contacting people leads to new friends, new connections, meeting people. To me, I have more fun, I think, making friends than I do making money from this. So that's just a little side story within that book.
And speaking of meeting people, is there a way that they can reach you either by Facebook or Twitter?
By Facebook, yes. Facebook, you can go to my page, which is Entertaining Detours on Facebook, and I'd be glad to hear from them.
Okay. And we've got just a couple minutes left, so any words of wisdom?
Well, one thing I would like to try to stress is that life is a gift. Life can be challenging, life can be difficult, but life is a real precious gift. And I think that I try to convey that in my stories, whether it's a drama or whether it's humor, that we all have problems, we all have challenges, but considering the alternative, having a chance to live and experience and grow is a wonderful thing. This came home to me quite hard when I was writing Entertaining Detours. My daughter was helping me write it, and she called me one day, and she said, "Dad, this is brilliant. You've got to promise me you'll finish this book. I'll never get a chance to write a book, but please promise me you'll finish this." And we were having fun editing together, and I thought, "Oh, yeah, sure, don't worry. I'll promise, I'll finish it." Didn't think anything of it. A week later, she died tragically. And I thought, oh, my God, now I have to finish this book. And so it became therapy for me and a celebration rather than mourning her loss. We celebrated her life in that story. Her son, my grandson, and I, and my oldest son, we went to Hong Kong where Susie used to live as a child, which was her favorite place on earth. And we brought her ashes there to rest. And there they are in the hillside right behind our house, which you can read about at Entertaining Detours. So I would encourage people to appreciate the gift of life that we've been given and to make the most of it.
And that's well said. And with that, we have run out of time. I thank you very much for being with us, and we look forward to seeing your new books coming out next year.
Thank you so much, Alan. I really appreciate it.
Good night.
Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Dear Texas Radio, where we encourage everyone to drop everything and read a great book by a Texas author. More information about this show or any of our shows from the past years can be found at radio.deartexas.info. That's radio.deartexas.info. I'm Randy James, your announcer for Dear Texas Radio.